Okay, so I'm going to get started and welcome our speakers for the evening. Each of them will have a few minutes at the podium to speak and talk about what they do on a day-to-day basis. Once everyone is on stage, we'll ask some general prepared questions to our panel and then conclude by taking audience questions. Sound good? All right, our first speaker for the evening is Rob Barron. Rob is the program head and instructor for the Renewable Energy and Conservation Program at Lakeland College in Vermilion, Alberta. Everyone, please welcome Rob.
I'll use this one. Is this one on? Okay, yeah, I was allowed a couple minutes here just to give a brief introduction of myself so that you have some context if you want to ask some questions. My name is Rob Barron. I'm an engineer, professional engineer in Alberta, and I've been teaching at Lakeland College in Vermilion, which is about 2 hours directly east of Edmonton here. We had a beautiful drive in. And at Lakeland, in about 2009, we started a renewable energy and conservation diploma program. And a lot of the courses are available online with an intent to attract people that are looking at changing their career path later in life, perhaps, and can't get away from full-time college. So I teach the solar courses, solar design and solar thermal. We've had a bunch of research projects out there dealing with geo-exchange systems, solar thermal, PV, both off and on-grid, micro wind, and combined heat and power. So we've got a little research center out there, and I see a lot of people in my daily life who are looking at careers in the industry.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rob. Okay, perfect. So our second speaker for the evening is Dave Cook. Dave does solar design and sales at Altpro. Welcome, Dave.
This will be fine. I'm Dave Cook. I work here in the city with Altpro Electric. I've been in the industry, solar industry, actively for about 3 years now, so I'm a newbie here. About 2011, I made a big career change. I was doing a completely different trade, and I wanted to try something new and different. So I started looking around at different opportunities, and I actually wanted to get into solar at that time, and I applied to a couple of the larger solar players in the province and didn't get any response back, unfortunately, but decided I could kind of sneak into another trade and maybe work my way towards that. So I became an electrician, so I'm a red seal electrician now, and with the large interest now in the province of Alberta with solar, I had the opportunity to just jump right back into it now. So it's been a big learning curve for me, but I'm excited to be able to do it. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. Good to have you. Our third speaker for the evening is Dale Rowe, Managing Director and CEO of Solar Superstore. Welcome, Dale.
Hi, guys. How you doing? Yeah, like they said, I'm Dale from Solar Superstore, and I kind of have a little bit of a longer story than most people probably do here. I kind of made some notes, and yeah, so like I said, we're a local supplier here of solar equipment, grid tie equipment, and we support local installers to do with innovative products that are simple and easy to install on most roofs. So we also stock and supply the off-grid equipment for industry out there, for remote sites, independent people with cabins and RVs. So that's kind of what our business's model is mostly based on. But so those are the formalities, but I'd like to say a little bit about myself, where I came from in life, and I'm hoping to maybe, you might relate to some of this. So first thing I'd like to say is that I've, had a passion about energy all my life, ever since I was like in grade 9. When I was in science class, they were teaching about electricity and in depth and stuff like that. It really got my brain working and thinking about all the possibilities that were out there. And I think the biggest thing that I had back in the day was probably doing my thought process on capturing lightning and storing it. But after a little while of doing some research at the library, back in the day there wasn't any internet, so I kind of came to the conclusion that the technology wasn't quite there yet for the battery storage, but we're kind of getting to that point now, I think, with supercapacitors and lithium-ion batteries and big storage capacities that, you know, who knows, maybe pretty soon we'll be able to power a small town with it. So, you know, back in the day, I actually, you know, had a drawing on how my, you know, electricity and lightning capturing device would work, but so that was me back then, and still in grade 11, I was still thinking about a lot of different things, and I was getting into cars and powering cars, and so I was thinking about, you know, how to capture energy like manure and making methane gas and powering cars off of that so that, you know, and then, you know, later on it started getting into like fuel cells and, you know, because that was all the rage back in the 90s with Ballard and fuel cells. And so, yeah, there's been a lot of different things. And so, you know, I even got into like doing, you know, energy efficient homes like the earth ships. I don't know if you ever heard of earth ships before, but they're earthen homes. So that was part of it. But after that, you know, going to school and coming to Edmonton to get a job in the oil and gas industry, because, you know, there was always money in that. So, you know, and that was okay, but that wasn't a very exciting job, you know, having a job like that. So anyways, around 2000, I changed my career, and I started going into a different field of purchasing and buying equipment for a large company that was processing lots of food. And they had over 1,000 gallons a week in like waste vegetable oil. So that 1,000 gallons a week of waste vegetable oil, I'm like thinking, well, what can I do with that? What can I do with that? So I went out and I got myself a Mercedes-Benz diesel car, and I converted that to running on vegetable oil. So I ran for 7 years on my car just driving vegetable oil. So, you know, French fries, it smelled really good right behind the car, right? Yeah, so then I thought about that, and I was like, oh, well, I got myself a diesel boiler, and I put one in my garage, and then I decided that I was going to heat my house on vegetable oil, used vegetable oil. So I did that for a couple of years. That was fun, too. So, but now I drive a Nissan Leaf electric car, you know, that type of stuff, so that was fun. I love that. Again, that's another industry that's changing, too. So, but anyways, in 2010, my company that I used to work for decided that they got bought out by another company, and they were laying off tons of people. And when they were laying off all those people, I wanted to be one of them and give me a severance check after 10 years, but they didn't. But they decided to make my life a living hell, so I decided to, you know, I guess fire myself and quit. And so I thought, you know, I've been studying solar for a long time. I've been coming to these seminars since like 2007 religiously, like every single month. And I still do today. I sponsor the Solar Society here. Yeah, kind of getting thirsty. Sorry, I'm not used to public speaking very much. Anyways, yeah. So anyways, I decided because my house was paid off already, so I could take some leisure time to go study and take a business course on how to run a business. And so that was my start in 2011 to starting my own solar business, which was doing a solar install company where we, me and another master electrician and his apprentice, they were all passionate about solar, and we started doing local solar installs, and I was kind of the salesperson to get out there and get the jobs and do that. So anyways, and then in 2014 I switched to becoming a solar supplier here in Edmonton, and that's kind of my story of doing this. So hopefully, anyways, there's one more little thing I wanted to say, and that would be you know, we do love solar, we love renewable energies and everything about it, and I hope that we can inspire you guys tonight to make the world a little bit of a better place, and, you know, powering the world one solar panel at a time. So, and yes, we are doing some hiring here this spring, and that if you have a deep passion for solar like I do, and a good understanding parts, equipment, and the solar industry, looking for somebody to possibly do some inside sales and, you know, taking phone calls and doing order entry and inventory management and some of the shipping, etc. So, yeah, so if you can, you know, give me a call in the coming week. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dale. Sorry that I'm really bad at changing the slides, so not everybody was Rob. So that was great. Thank you for your speech there, Dale. That was great. That was perfect. So our fourth speaker, I'd like to introduce my good friend Andrew Lyndell. He is the technical sales lead at Great Canadian Solar. So come on up. Welcome, Andrew.
Hi, I'm Andrew Lyndell. I work for Great Canadian Solar as the technical sales lead, as April just mentioned. I guess how did I get here today? I used to work in the IT industry for close to 10 years, until about 2011. Didn't really like that industry so much, kind of boring, didn't mean anything to me. One day I saw an article in the Edmonton Journal that NAIT was offering an alternative energy program, and I actually spent a lot of time at my former job arguing with people about energy and climate change and stuff like that quite fruitlessly. Once I saw that article, I immediately applied for the program, got in, and right out of that program got a job with Great Canadian Solar, so that was about 5 years ago, and that's why I'm here today. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. That was great. That got really loud all of a sudden. Last but not least, we have Brandon Sandmeyer, the operations manager of Generate Energy. Welcome, Brandon.
Thanks, April. Thanks for, oh yeah, you gotta switch the slide. I'm not Andrew, I'm Brandon. Thanks for coming out, everyone, tonight. So yeah, my role is operations manager with Generate Energy. I am one of the directors of the company as well. My journey to the position that I'm in currently started with me in another career. I'm a heavy-duty mechanic, or an HET, in Alberta. I worked for several companies in Fort McMurray, and I finished off working in the mobile crane industry. Like Andrew, I attended the alternative energy program. Excuse me. And out of the program, a partner and I decided that we were going to actually start Generate Energy from right after graduating. So it was quite a challenge coming out of school after 2 years and then right back into starting a company. I wouldn't recommend it. So we did survive, and we started to flourish, started to hire a lot of really awesome staff. In 2017, we merged with a company now known as the Vital Group of Companies. So there are we have two other sister companies, Vital Engineering and 3D Energy. So we are a part of that group now. That's our group in Generate is 6 people strong, and we're going to be growing more this year. And then we have about 50 total employees for the whole group of companies. So day to day, my job looks like kind of directing traffic right now. There's a lot of this is our busy season for design and getting projects ready to go. I have a really competent staff that I'm grateful to have every day, and we're looking to grow as well. We have a lot of projects coming up this year, but yeah, there's always room for growth in this industry, and we need new people into it who are passionate every year to keep it growing. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. All right, so I have some prepared questions that I'm going to throw out to the panel here, and then just start thinking about what you guys really want to get out of this seminar and what you guys want to know, because we're going to open up the questions to the audience in a little bit here. So I'm going to throw it out to you guys, and you're going to pass the mic. What does a typical day look like for you?
So a typical day for me would be, as a salesperson, I talk to a lot of people who contact us interested in solar and want to know what it takes to install a system on their roof or at their farm, that kind of stuff. Commercial interest as well. a lot of site assessments, so driving out to talk to clients, a lot of education in that part of the job. Just spend a lot of time with them, explaining to them how it works. There's a lot of, I guess, misinformation out there, misconceptions about how the system works, how they can save money with it, that sort of stuff. One of the coolest things I get to do at my job is fly a drone, so we can map roofs and stuff like that with a drone, create 3D models, and that's pretty fun when I'm not crashing it. Yeah, it's just a lot of dealing with people and colleagues in the industry, suppliers, and that kind of stuff.
Great. Anyone else?
Okay, there we go. Emails, lots of emails, so many emails. Yeah, similar to what Andrew was talking about, lots of interest, talking to people, just getting out there, meeting, dispelling some myths that are in the industry. Tons of different players too. We talked to a lot of engineers. A lot goes into the process of putting solar up. So engineers, suppliers, shipping companies, crane companies, just tons of moving parts to the puzzle here.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question. What preparation, this I think I'd like all of you to answer. What preparation and training did you have for the position that you have now? Start maybe down, Rob.
Okay. Oh, that's loud. You know, the preparation training, there's also another thing is I find that a lot of people that are working currently in the renewable industry often didn't start there. They started with something else, and we've heard a few stories today about how that worked in terms of preparation. Myself, 35 years ago, I graduated from engineering school, and at that time I was an agricultural engineer, and with a specialty in farm machinery and particularly ag electronics. I was doing control systems and things for farm machines, GPS, GIS, and electronics on the low control scale. So that was my specialty back then, and in the mid-2000s, I guess like Dale there, and got into biodiesel, and we had a small biodiesel plant, and yeah, you see, you didn't know that about me, Dale. I didn't know that you did it too. So similar to him, in the mid-2000s when biodiesel was a thing, I kind of got into that because I had experience in diesel engine testing and stuff like that because of my engineering background in the mechanical side. And I'd been working with a student at the college on that project, and he said, well, what about all these other renewable energy options out there? And so we started investigating it, and then we started developing a renewable energy training program because there really wasn't too much a person could do to get going. So in the mid-2000s, we were developing that program, and I had a real interest in it. I really liked the renewable concepts of things like the biodiesel. And I looked at all the different industries that were out there, like the wind and the solar, the geo-exchange kinds of systems out there, green buildings. I have a passion for green buildings as well. And it seemed to me that the solar industry, and it was evolving. About the time in 2009 when the microgeneration legislation changed to allow people to generate their own electricity, we were kind of full on there. So it just seemed like the right thing to do. And I think solar has been, out of all the topics in the renewable energy that I've dabbled with, solar is definitely one of the ones that has the most potential. It's a well-established technology. It's easy to do, and I work with a lot of different systems, and I must say solar PV, especially grid tie, is the lowest maintenance thing that I have. I burnt my hands so many times on solar thermal systems I don't want to think about it. But so that's what it did, and so I had to get retrained a bit. So you know, it wasn't really my field to start with, and so I went to Ontario, and Ontario was booming back then, and I did some solar courses. I learned about the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners, NABCEP, And I entered into a sort of my entry-level NABCEP about 10 years ago. And then through developing the training programs we have, I ended up becoming a certified NABCEP solar installer, which is kind of an American certification. There really wasn't anything in Canada that was kind of equivalent to that at the time. And so, yeah, from an engineering background, doing the NABCEP certification, there's a group of 6 of us in Alberta from all across the province. We couldn't get a NABCEP exam because you had to travel to the States to do that, to get the certification. So there were 6 of us, including from Great Canadian Solar, Clifton. We got together and brought the exam to us, because we didn't want to go to the exam, and created a little online study group. Not online, we had Wednesday afternoon phone calls and did the NABCEP training. So the process of getting NABCEP certification for me was probably the most critical training exercise to prepare me for what I do today.
Awesome, thank you.
I started taking, I think the first course I took was the CISA course with Eric Smiley. It was fantastic, just a good ground up course to get in and learn how the system works, how to put it together, design. There's another like 5-day course put on in Edmonton that I took that kind of got the hands-on portion as well, filled in some small gaps, and then just started getting out there and installing it. So.
You probably heard my podium speech, and if you weren't here, pretty much I was a self-taught person from a kid growing up. I've just absorbed as much information as I could off the internet, as much as I could when it was becoming booming in the early 2000s, and then I joined the Solar Society and probably took 5 or 10 courses with the Solar Society, with the renewable energy courses that they put on, whether it's grid tie or off-grid and battery systems, and yeah, I think that was pretty much what my training was. And then, of course, real-world install training helps the best, of course. You get more, with the more experience you get, the more, better you are at it. Yeah, nothing could be better than experience, so.
Well, the only formal training I had was the NAIT Alternative Energy Program. I am in a sales position. My previous career was in sales in the IT industry. A lot of that IT experience actually did translate over to this industry as well. The solar PV systems communicate with the internet, and that can be a struggle, as I'm sure everybody here knows. So that background and that skill that I had actually fit quite well with this industry, and able to leverage that quite a bit in my job, the sales part as well. But really, ultimately, it was just I had a passion for doing it, and I wanted to do something that would be meaningful to me, and also something that I felt was good for the world. So it was passion, definitely.
Yeah, similarly, I took the NAIT Alternative Energy Program as well, which is like 3 years of schooling jammed into 2, and I think you were one of the earlier classes, so you even had it worse than I did. So there's definitely that in my background. CISA has been huge for me as well. Starting a business, they've been extremely helpful with the courses that they offered. There's a contract course that they offered, which has been really good for us and really helped us, start down that path of gaining clients. I'm also a certified energy auditor, so we also started our business with, the intent was in the wintertime to be doing energy assessments and energy audits for commercial facilities, and so I had to take some training down in the United States to get that certification. Yeah, the bulk of my training has been through NAIT, CISA, and like I said, the auditing course, and then just diving in and yeah, like Andrew said, having a passion for it and being open, because you constantly have to learn in this industry. It's not an industry where you can remain stagnant. Like Dale had mentioned, he had was attending these religiously, and it started under his understanding and probably networking. For me as well, when I was still in the program at NAIT, we would come to these as often as we could, because we got to meet people in the industry and got to understand who the main companies were, who would be hiring, and what kind of skill sets they were looking for. So and then the courses that CISA offers, again, I'll reiterate that they are very high quality, and there's kind of a course for everyone, no matter what your level of understanding is.
Besides just any formal education you can get, I would say decide what side of the industry you want to be on. Do you want to install solar, or do you want to be more on the in the office doing sales, dealing with the public, dealing with clients, that sort of stuff, emails. But yeah, I think it's pretty critical to decide what you actually want to do. If you're interested in the install side, then become an electrician.
My side of things, I guess, would be being more passionate about this industry again, get educated on everything you can possibly know about it. This seminar series is the awesomest place to be for getting educated. What would I offer advice? Yeah, whether you want to be inside or outside, that's one big thing. There's opportunity out there. As time goes on, hopefully there'll be even more. I don't know what I can add to whatever these guys already put in there, but you got to be passionate about it and educate everybody about it, I think, and that's really what I do 24 hours a day.
With all the different ways of installing solar and how it works and functions, it's not just different streams of you want to install or sell it. When I talked about earlier about like engineers, we work directly with structural engineers. That's a big one we're putting on top of buildings. Geotechnical engineers, we're going to put it on the ground. Things like that, electrical engineers, architects, things like that. It all plays into it well, so it's not just sales and installs, right? So.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And the other thing, I think, if you're entering into the industry, and I see, like again, I have about somewhere between 50 and 70 students that are sort of in our programs online, and they all have different career goals. Sometimes people think, and I think there's a demand for actual solar installers, which would be electricians. But like a lot of people alluded to here, there's many different career kind of aspects with that. I mean, I've had people in insurance wanting to learn about solar because it affects insurance or financing. There's many angles to these products. I have environmental people that are interested in the environmental impact assessments when solar goes to utility scale. We're going to have some serious things there. I would suggest that if you're interested, and I've seen this with my students, the ones that are most successful are those that are polite and persistent. The solar industry is an emerging area, and it doesn't always go well. There's not customers pounding your door all the time if you're running a business. You have to go out and you have to educate your customers, and you have to develop confidence in that. People are skeptics. I think there are some times when it's not easy, and you have to remain positive and persistent. And networking was mentioned here, and I think it's really critical. And you're so lucky to have the Solar Energy Society here. I mean, I've been participating for about 10 years as well in this, and I teach one of those courses. Having that there, and also to be resilient, because we saw it in Ontario, and we may see it, is that we don't want an industry that's going to rely on government subsidies and supports. We want to establish a responsible industry that can stand on its own merits. And so when there will be ups and downs. When a government program is announced, everybody wants to install solar, right? You'll have a lot of companies entering the market at that time. But I think you want to be persistent and have a more long-term view for an industry that's going to grow on its own merits.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I just want to add to that too. I think the biggest points out of all of those is passion, right? You have to want to be there. You have to want to do this, right? Get out there, get your face out there, do some networking. And there is, as you can see from our panel, there's a ton of work in the solar industry and a ton of different areas you can work in. So so keep at it, and you'll get there. So this is for whoever would like to answer. Since beginning your own journey in the solar industry, what's one lesson you've learned that has drastically impacted your work?
Yeah, I did read the questions ahead of time, and I did think about it a little bit. And I was trying to think of what would be the single most important thing. I think quality matters, integrity. Okay, and that would include the products that you buy or sell, the products that you have for your customers, professional installations. When we first started doing installs, our installing skills were maybe not up to where they should be, and I learned very quickly that your installs have to be professionally done, using quality equipment, safely. Safety is really, really critical, and having a real good safety attitude, and it has to look like a professional did it, and that's going to pay back in the long term. So I think quality from sort of front to back and integrity are things that I think matter.
Any other big lessons you guys have learned that you'd like to share?
I think Rob covered 5 of them into one, but I'm going to say for us it was more like customer service is key too, to making sure that you answer your customers' phone calls and answer all their questions. Customer service, and yeah, like you said, quality is a good thing too, and cheap is not always the best. You do see that in this industry of a race to the bottom, and so we need to cover ourselves for that.
I think one of the lessons that it was kind of mentioned earlier actually is this industry is changing all the time. There's not really any huge breakthroughs happening or anything like that in the technology, but there's always changes in the inverters and the solar modules and the racking system and all that sort of stuff, and you can't really just rest on one thing. You have to be constantly open to looking at different ways of doing things, because it does change quickly, and if your competitor has found an edge, that might put you behind.
I think that solar in general is exceedingly difficult, or it can be, because of the nature of the product and people always looking for a return on investment. Sometimes it's deflating for people to understand, that the return on investment isn't as high as they'd hoped it would be. So constantly managing expectations of clients from people who are telling them that the return is better than it actually is a challenge. It is something that we constantly update our clients on a realistic outcome, because we can't predict the future. We can't predict the cost of energy in the future, but we can make assumptions. We can make educated guesses. So that is a challenge. I would say, don't let people pull the wool over your eyes. Like learn the math, learn the economics of solar, because that will help you if you're moving into like a sales role or something. Not to blindside people with false information.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, another one for all of you guys, if you could please answer. Is your company hiring within the next few months? And if yes, what positions and what characteristics and experience are you looking for new hires? Whew, that's a lot. Are you hiring?
Yes. Just joking. We're looking for installers for this install season. We're looking for people who have, for sure, it's mentioned a few times, a passion about this, have done some, maybe some education on their own time, put in some energy and some money maybe to take some training, and understand that they're coming into an entry-level position, but they're willing to take that for what it is. It's a huge opportunity to move into an existing solar company that has openings right now. So it's not something that's it's not as widely available as everyone kind of makes it out to be. Like it is hard to get into this industry. I'm hoping that it will be less so with more of an uptake, but people who are really driven, somebody who wants to work hard, wants to see quality at the end of the day, and not just earn a paycheck. It's a very different industry than for say the oil industry. You're going to really have to work at that position, and we keep the best people on our staff at the end of the day. People who want to be there, people who are quality and purpose driven, and look for the customer's needs as the highest as the highest goal.
Yeah, we'll definitely be hiring in the next month or two for sure. Most of those people are going to be installers, laborers, moving modules around, carrying bricks around. Some of it can be pretty tedious. If you're interested in becoming an electrician, already are an electrician, definitely looking for that as well. Probably not hiring like office positions as much, maybe 1 or 2 people, but the vast majority of positions will be people installing. And I think April can attest to it, it's not the easiest work in the world. It can be kind of difficult.
A little bit.
What was the other part of the question?
Characteristics and experience are you looking for in new hires?
Yeah, I guess I touched on that. Just if you're an electrician, that's always an asset for sure.
Yes, we will be hiring an office person for doing inside sales, answering customers' questions. Hopefully, somebody who's really knowledgeable in the, off-grid and grid-tied systems out there that's available. Anything for doing the shipping, even receiving, that type of stuff too. So I'm looking for somebody who's all around, probably a year-round position. All right.
Yep, we're always looking for people. We've got a need for installers coming up this season. We're looking for project managers on the solar side as well, and crew leaders. So the project manager side doesn't have to be an electrician specific position. If you've got project management experience, that would be ideal. So yeah, just lots of positions open for us. Drop us a line.
And of course, I'm at a college, so I'm not one of these installers, and might not be the career you think of. But our college for many years had a research program. So we're not hiring. We have no jobs on our website right now for this position, for this area. But we have hired lots of technicians for our research projects in renewable energies in general, which would include solar as well as other things. And we recently hired an outreach person to work with agricultural on-farm in conjunction with Alberta Agriculture and their funding programs to communicate with farmers about accessing grants and that kind of thing. So it's a traveling show. She's on the road all the time, and she was a new hire recently. So, I mean, even at the college, we are hiring people in the renewable area industry from time to time. I had up to about 5 people until my research projects concluded recently, but yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So that concludes my prepared questions. So get the questions that you guys want to ask ready. We're going to take a little bit of a break. We encourage you to network, mix and mingle.
Hi, Dave and Andrew, earlier in the presentation you mentioned that a good chunk of your job involves dispelling misinformation and misconceptions about.
Solar doesn't work in Alberta or in the winter is one I see all the time.
We've been getting great production with this cold weather.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
Sunny days these last week. But
Yeah.
don't talk about January because that was horrible.
Yes. This past year, yeah, that's always a big one that comes up. It doesn't work here. We don't get enough sun. We get a ton of sun here. I think we really take it for granted. Production-wise, some of the winter months I've seen here were better than August last year. August, September, we had all that smoke roll in from BC. Production was way down. So that had a big effect on it, but the cold weather here, not so much.
Besides that, yeah, I mean, just to reiterate, that I've got some ground mount systems out there for some of our clients on farms, and yeah, producing just amazing in the last month or two, just incredible. They're not only the cold weather, but the reflection from the snow off the ground onto the array has I don't know what the actual numbers are, but it has an effect on it for sure. The common questions, where are the batteries? Well, there is none. Snow is a big one. So on a residential roof in Edmonton, yeah, snow cover's you're not gonna be producing a lot when it's covered in snow. But winters, short days, sun's low in the sky. You're really, for a residential rooftop system, you're producing most of your energy in that sort of May to October period anyway. And whatever you get in the winter for a residential rooftop, bonus. How the financials work, I guess, is a big one as well. I get questions constantly. People think that you're going to get charged transmission and distribution on energy that you export to the grid. You don't. People think you're going to get taxed on it, that kind of stuff. There's all kinds. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any more. But anybody else?
Well, one of the things that I've been spending a lot of time on lately is the economic side of the PV, and a lot of people's perceptions of solar being expensive are very outdated kind of ideas from maybe 10 years ago or something like that. And because some of the first systems that I was involved with were $8, $9, $10 an installed watt, and now we're many systems going in for under $3 an installed watt ready to go. So for residential. Yeah. $2.25 for a rebate, so when you start plugging those into the numbers, and I see in the back of the room, there's my man, Keith Vickery, and I, a couple of years ago, developed a cost calculator that's up on the Municipal Climate Change website, and I've been running that calculator every year, and it just gets better and better in terms of a shorter and shorter payback. So, if you think that solar doesn't pay, when was the last time you did the analysis? Because I update my analysis every 6 months, and every time it just seems like it's getting closer and closer to a really sweet spot.
Rob talked about the payback. That's another big one that comes up all the time. When are you ever going to pay your power bill off? Ever? Never. Solar gives you that opportunity to pay off your power bill. It's something that will pay you back eventually, maybe a little bit of a long time, but that power bill is never going to go away on its own.
Speaking of economics, the same thing. What was the return on investment of the last car you bought? It's about the equivalent to the same price as that, but yeah, at least with solar, you'll get a rebate and you'll get your return on investment eventually over time. So.
Okay, great question. Who is next?
Is the industry worried about a change in government?
Yeah, well, we're hoping not to get political here, but of course... Oh, somebody else wants to take this one. Yes, of course, the industry is going to be having its ups and downs, like Rob said there about the industry. Hopefully we'll have an okay government. Will still support the green and renewables in the future. What was I going to say there? I forgot now. But anyways, we'll have our ups and downs, and I'm sure it'll level itself out over time, just like the amount of people getting into the industry, and it'll level itself out too. So.
It definitely does weigh on everyone's mind in the industry. The government right now has definitely been responsible for kickstarting this industry. It was definitely, we were selling systems before there was any rebates, but it definitely has helped the industry to grow and to mature. I think that if there is a change in government, I know for a fact that there are some groups within the conservative ranks that are that understand solar. Solar is inherently a conservative thing. You're saving money, you have a return on investment that you can count on. You're purchasing electricity at the same rate, levelized cost of energy, over a period of time. So you're buying your energy in bulk beforehand. You know what you're going to pay for the next 25, 35 years. So inherently, it is, in my mind, it's a conservative value. But getting the right people to see that is going to be important. And I know there are some groups working on that. Within our company, we have some people who used to work in politics, and they've reassured me that there are groups out there that are working on the Conservative Party to help them understand the reality of solar and the jobs that can be created. And if you look to the United States alone, the solar industry has survived through the Trump era because it is an industry, and because they can't actually deny the amount of work that it has generated and the amount of jobs that it has generated, and it's self-sustaining now. So it's something that it's obviously a concern, but I hope that there are enough people out there who understand this and can reiterate it. And the momentum is very strong here. Who knows what can happen, but it's up to the market as well. It's not just up to the government.
Yeah, definitely a concern. One thing that is coming, though, earliest would be fall, is the PACE program, which is the Property Assessed Clean Energy program, which allows you to essentially put the cost of a solar PV system and other energy efficiency things on your property taxes at a low interest rate. So it's not a loan against you as a person, it's a loan against your property. If you sell the property, that goes with it, and the new owner just takes on those payments. So it's just another mechanism that allows people to take advantage of solar without putting up all of the money up front. That's regardless of a change in government.
Yeah, and again, just for a guy that just dives deep into the numbers, the provincial rebate programs that are in place right now are certainly helping, and the sales will be sensitive to those kinds of prices. But to kind of be realistic, a typical system that makes sense might have a payback of 12 years with the grant program and maybe 16 years without. So there's still going to be a payback. It's just it's going to affect that a couple of years, and the people that are passionate about it will do it. And it's interesting to see the electricity price that over the last year. Thank God we got a little bit of a cap there. Well, not thank God, because not for solar people. You change your mindset when you become a solar generator, because as a consumer you want the price to be capped, but when they're paying you that credit, you want the price to just go as high as it can be. So I share that, but if you look at if you go to the Alberta Utility Commission and look up the rate prices, and your bill now is capped, but look at the real price, and the real price is much higher. So if that cap goes away with a change in government, then the profitability there's positives and negatives to that.
So yeah, the change in government could drastically change the landscape out there. One of the big talks is that the carbon tax going away, and that Energy Efficiency Alberta is funded out of that carbon tax. The cap that Rob just talked about is funded out of the carbon tax. So your rebates for solar go away, that cap goes away, electricity is going to be going up. I'm hoping there's not a big change now with all the progress that we've had in the last 4 years. I would hate to see us go right back to the dark ages in one direction. I don't, like a lot of us up here, seem to have come from an oil field background as well, or it's been a big part of our lives, I'm sure with everyone out there. Solar coming in, it's new. It's not going to destroy the oil industry in our province, right? We can have both and do it conservatively.
Thank you. Great question. Who is next?
Thank you. I just missed the presentation, and I'm not trying again to be political here, but there is this news saying that if UCP wins, they would scrap Energy Efficiency Alberta. Now, I don't know if it affects solar or not, but if it does, do we have a plan B?
No, I don't think there is a plan B, but you know, I've been in this industry since 2011, and I remember seeing the growth going all the way up to 2013, and then the election happened in 2014, and it just kind of went stagnant, I guess, if you want to call it that, for quite a while, until the program kicked in, because everybody's like, oh, I'm not going to install solar until I get free money. And then all of a sudden, once we got the free money, then it kicked off again. But yeah, I think it'll stabilize over time on its own. Once it gets its legs going, you know what I mean? So, well, we need the rebate program in the future. I've seen solar going for like people installing it so cheap now, it's unbelievable. I've heard some of the contractors out there installing at $2 a watt and smaller. That's before the rebate. Right. So, I mean, I heard they were getting 85 cents, the homeowner. That was their cost on it. So, hey, anything's possible with technology as it changes, and I think we'll survive.
And the analysis that we do as well, and what happened recently with the new community scale program that was announced, what they found was that subsidies on a community scale solar program or installation, they don't want subsidies. They want price certainty for what they're selling, right? You're selling kilowatt hours, and you want to know what you're going to make on that to make it a long-term investment. The money for the project will come if they can guarantee that price is there. So I think that with the measures provincially and federally to change drastically the way that we generate electricity in Alberta, the price will rise. We've actually invested in studies to determine what the forecasted cost of electricity is going to be, because it largely affects our business, quite honestly. And there are people who do these studies high level who understand the intricacies of the electricity system in Alberta. And the fact is that over time this price is going to rise, and that is only going to make a stronger case for solar. So I don't really see that. I kind of actually hope that we can survive without subsidies, because honestly, you're not a real industry if you can't. In the end, subsidies are there to help grow the industry, to get it going, to generate interest for a market. And so I'm really confident that you know, all the companies existing here, and hopefully more, will grow in spite of a government change. There might be challenges that I'm a little bit blind to, but I think that ultimately it's an investment decision, and I think with the challenges we're facing as a globe, with climate change, with the understanding that costs are going to rise with respect to energy, that solar is still going to find a home in the market here in Alberta.
Yeah, I also had one more thing about that. Government's really out there to really steer society where we think it should go towards, and solar is a good way of doing that, and incentives is a good way of doing that. But I really think the government should also more focus on education to the general public and its benefits to the world and everything about it. So I really think we need to, get Rob and his college to really get more education out there and that type of thing. So.
Thank you very much. Next question.
Thank you. On the field side of things, I'm an electrician. Is it stable all year long, or like what do you guys do for like the winter side of things?
It definitely peaks in the warmer weather for sure. Like all construction industries, you generate a lot of sales in the off months and do a lot of installs in the spring, summer, fall. That being said, we've been installing all year, just not with the same amount. A lot of our crew will be in school during the cold part of the year, and then come back and we ramp up. But flat roof commercial installs can take place at any time of the year. It's really just the sloped roof residential stuff that really slows down at this time of year.
Yeah, we have a similar pattern. Our business has, we've got into lighting design, LED lighting design, and then retrofit as well for commercial. We keep it mostly to commercial. We don't do anything super fancy, but it definitely keeps our electricians employed over the winter. We work with municipalities to, you know, multiple buildings. So we have projects that definitely continue all through the winter because, yeah, it is a challenge to keep a skilled set of staff. You want to make sure that you can keep them employed throughout the year and, you know, train them up in the summer and then have them back again for the next year. So within our business anyway, that's how we kind of weather the winters, yeah.
Next question.
Thank you. I'm wondering how benefits and overtime and that sort of thing are in the industry in general.
Well, I guess that varies from employer to employer. Ultrapro's, we're a fairly large contractor in Edmonton, so our guys we've got full benefit packages for our employees. They're quite good. Overtime doesn't happen too often. Try to keep the guys on a nice, even work schedule, so we're not, you know, it's a work-intensive field to be in, and we don't want to overwork you. So I try to get away from that, but there is opportunities there for that.
For my days of doing installs, we were always using subcontractors, so they had their own WCB and whatever they were doing, getting paid their $100 an hour, and they were putting it into their own RRSPs, I guess, and their own benefits. So
we peak at around 20 employees at our busiest time of the year. Full benefits package, so even as a small company, we can offer that. Same thing. We try to avoid overtime. Good work-life balance. Sometimes it happens, but it's something we try to avoid.
Yeah, I would say the same for us. Overtime, often we find that we try and keep it to a minimum, or we shift the working week sometimes to work 4/10s instead for a period of time. But sometimes, you know, to finish something rather than, you know, go to a job again the next day, we spend a few hours in a day to finish up. But it's not a norm. We like to keep people, you know, to the schedule that the 40 hours a week.
Thank you. Next question.
Is the majority of the industry like a grid tie system, or in the future would there be, I guess, more of a movement to installing battery packs and stuff in individual people's homes?
Yeah, grid tie is the majority of what we do. For solar, we have there are grid tied battery backup systems available now. We installed two kinds, a DC coupled and an AC coupled system. Just depends which side of the inverter you put the battery on, but these are systems that are going to be coming on quite strong in probably the next 5 years, I would say. The costs are coming down, and there's it really depends on what the pricing system is for Alberta. In Alberta, we don't have a time of use system, so when you use electricity, it's the same price if you use it in the morning or in the evening or in the middle of the day. But in some jurisdictions, in order to curb energy use, they actually do have, like in Arizona, you know, it costs you way more money to use electricity in the late day or in the early morning. This is where battery systems, the economics of them, really start to make sense, because you can store the electricity during the day and use it, disconnect from the grid and use it in the evening. So I don't know if that strategy is going to come to Alberta. It may. I've heard rumors of it, but I'm not sure if that will come in the next 5 years. But definitely battery backup systems are, there's niche clients who want them, people who you know, are at the end of the line and just want to have that security. One customer of ours wanted to keep watching golf, and he really didn't like it when the power went out, which it often did at his cabin, so we installed the battery system for him. And then some customers really like the idea of having, you know, they live in the middle of the city, there's no power issues at all, but they just really want to have a battery backup system. So it really depends.
Yeah, I'd say that there's really not a return on investment model for that really pays itself back. So you really have to want to be on a hybrid system right now. Like you said, the same thing with the power, time of day. You know, if you're paying 40 cents a kilowatt hour for your energy, then it makes an economic case for it. But until it does, probably not going to see it very much. Unless I think the big thing will be either electric cars, having a grid back to your car and car back to grid again. And then that would be your backup battery in the future. I think we see some of that technology already kicking in with Solar Edge. I think they have the storage and stuff like that. So I think Nissan Leaf is probably much the only company out there that has that already built into their EV chargers, so you can actually do that. So if the power goes out, your car can power your house. So I don't think they're North America certified yet, but they're out there in Japan and Europe and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was just going to speak a little to the term for that delaying the use there is solar arbitrage. And what you're doing is you accumulate a lot of electricity during the day, store it, and use it at night. When I was at a conference in New York last year, we had a long discussion with people with way more solar experience than a lot of Canadians there. And it's interesting, Hawaii has a kind of a really unique system, is that they don't have the grid interchange to other states or provinces. Here in Alberta, we can exchange energy with Montana, BC, or Saskatchewan, and it comes and goes. When you're an island like Hawaii and a sunny island that has high electricity costs, they have a lot of solar there, and they've actually reached that point where there's just too much solar on the island, and on a good sunny day, they can't export to Montana like we can if we had a lot of sunny day. So that's where a lot of the studies have been done on the solar arbitrage and the battery storage and cycling it every day for that economics. And there's still, even in that market where it really kind of makes sense, it's still a hard payback.
Awesome, thank you guys. Next question. Just right behind you there, Sheila.
Hi. So what would be your solution be with respect to your experience to a client in a third world country who's facing outages? Okay, he's facing electrical outages and he wants to install solar. So you'd probably be giving him a hybrid system with battery backup. But in economic terms, when we give him a model, the return on investment with respect to the current technology in batteries, even if you propose lithium ions or if you go with AGM batteries, what according to my working wasn't feasible. So definitely you guys have a lot of experience on this. So I hope this is not out of the boundaries of the curriculum over here. But what would you suggest? There would be remote areas over here, even in Canada, would face power outages with respect to several natural hazards, right? So what would your solution be to them? Thanks.
Which country was this from? Pakistan, okay. And his return on investment probably won't be, it's like our return on investment is not there. There's no economic case for it. He's got to want it to pay for it. That's it. There's no, as far as my opinion.
Sir, I recommended an on-grid system, but his need for power outages, that wasn't satisfied. So that was the only case, I think.
Yeah, just coming up with a hybrid system, like you said, but it's what's his budget, I guess, what it comes down to, and what are his expectations to how it's going to work for him. How many hours a day? 4 hours? 2 hours? I mean, you can come up with small battery systems. It's not that hard, but if it's 24 hours, and he wants to run a fridge and an air conditioner and everything else, I mean, it's all variable depending on his loads. There's so many thought processes that go into a design.
Exactly. And with respect to Sir's earlier mention about time of use, so they particularly, I think, use battery hybrid systems involving batteries. So I think that is used in Ontario side maybe. So do we have economic models which have the return on investment for that? Because these particular cities, I think they don't face any power outages, right?
You might have some negative.
They're going to throw me under the bus. No. These are clearly challenges, and basically what happens when you build a hybrid system, of course, is you're kind of almost doubling the cost of the system because you're creating two kinds of systems. You're creating an off-grid system and a grid-tied system, and in one, right? So I wouldn't say it's quite double, but it's certainly you're kind of serving two needs, and so that's where the economics is really there, and really the only places that seem to do that well is where the electricity is like 54 cents a kilowatt hour or something in a jurisdiction where the electricity is really high, or the cost of bringing grid electricity is very expensive to drag out to a remote location. I guess in Canada, if you were doing an off-grid system and you wanted backup, I would suggest get natural gas and have a natural gas generator. It's going to be your lowest cost alternative. You're not going to have diesel sitting in a generator tank, and if you have access to that, most rural locations do. So I mean, sometimes you just gotta rely back on your fossil fuels, but only on a limited sense, and that's going to be your lowest cost backup. You'll have, I think, that's what I would recommend to somebody here. Instead of putting piles and piles of batteries, I would say, go to Costco and get a generator,
Good answer.
Yeah. With the batteries going into not just in a backup scenario, there's kind of some trials going on in St. Albert with using battery backup as peak shavers. So commercial clients get charged off of demand, how much they draw from the grid at one point in time. And if during their business day, if that's at a certain time, and when they hit that peak, they're charged at that peak for the next 12 months from the utility company. So if there's a means to lower that peak, their transmission and delivery charges can come down substantially. So a battery can go in there at that point when they hit that peak. The battery can supply that or supplement that energy with solar, and then their costs can come down. So then the ROI on a battery's looking a little bit better.
Yeah, they save $10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't answer your question. But it's another point about batteries.
Yeah, the generator was probably the best one for you.
My question is regarding installers. So a couple of you mentioned you were looking to hire installers. Is there a specific certification or requirement that installers be journeyman electricians? Or are you guys hiring field techs that are not electricians?
Right now, it's important to us to have electricians on the roof. So as the crew leaders or journeymans, the leaders on the roof, that's what we're looking for. Yeah, and apprentices as well. So there are some instances where we don't mind. We can use people that aren't indentured in certain aspects of the job, but majority of the time we'd like to have electricians handling and installing this equipment.
Well, Service Alberta requires it. So.
Yeah, so legal requirement as well.
It's a legal requirement? Sorry?
Yeah, Service Alberta requires that a solar system be installed by an apprentice at least, or hire to a journeyman to do the job. So you could have a person do the mounting system by itself and be done by a regular laborer, but does that really save that much time and help? Having a gopher, it might. So depending on the economics of how many crew you have there. So.
No, that's pretty much it. By law, you have to be an electrician to install a system. Otherwise, it's just general labor, literally hauling modules around, or if it's a big rooftop system that's ballasted, you're hauling a lot of brick around. Not very glorious work.
You're gonna sell it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
My apologies in advance if this question has been asked and answered already, but I'm curious for the installers, what is the most significant regulatory challenge that you're facing in terms of your guys having their boots on the roof and performing a good service for their clients?
Do you mean toward, like, in getting projects set up to install? Like, what are the regulatory challenges?
Yeah, and if there's specifically any regulatory challenges that are preventing you from providing maximum value and efficiency in those projects.
I would say the one that's reared its head this year is the code change. There's been a change in the Canadian Electrical Code. The Canadian Electrical Code is Section 64 pertains to everything relating to renewable energy systems, and there's been some changes within the system, within the requirements that are just being a bit disruptive. This might be a good way to put it. Okay. And so it's required us to, kind of come together as an industry and try and figure out the solutions to it. That would be the biggest one for this year, I would say. Generally, we have challenges around permitting with different inspectors, with different requirements for different jurisdictions. And some jurisdictions require, over-engineering, I'll call it, and some require very little. So navigating that aspect of it. The microgen regulation is quite straightforward. Those applications haven't really changed a whole lot, and they're depending on the lines owner, it can be really easy to go through that process. I don't know if there's anything else.
It's the safety code for sure. Certifications for equipment is another thing that just came up recently. That's probably going to prevent us from getting people on the roof for a few weeks at least. It's a short install season here, so that can be a huge challenge. On the microgen side, the rule that you're not allowed to generate more in a year that you had previously consumed in the preceding 12 months can be a bit of a hurdle for people if you've got the roof space and you want to just fill it up and you can't. That's the challenge in terms of providing the best possible system for the client. The inspections. Quick story: we had 2 crews install pretty much the exact same systems in the exact same way at 2 different houses in Edmonton, and one inspector passed it at one house and another inspector failed it at another house. It is what it is.
A lot of things that we run into on the commercial side, structural problems, like because Andrew's talking about lots and lots of brick. We got to make this, putting a system on a roof, we got to make it heavy enough to stay on the roof, but not too heavy to be on there. So there's one issue we deal with. There's another lovely company in Alberta called Arca that supplies a lot of warranties for roofs, and they are not solar friendly at all. So they're kind of a hurdle to get around as well. So. No?
Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll wrap up the Q&A if we got more questions here. Yeah?
Yeah, you guys kind of touched base on some transmission costs and stuff and distribution. Could you guys maybe elaborate on that? And I guess, is there any benefits of when you have a solar system to those costs? Do you want to do that? Or?
Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. March 23rd, we're going to spend all day at a CISA class talking about transmission distribution costs. Transmission and distribution costs can be avoided when you use the electricity that you generate simultaneous to its generation. So if during the day, in a nice sunny day, you would normally be drawing electricity and you've got air conditioning in a building and it's a nice summer day, if you can use that electricity directly instead of buying the electricity with the price of the energy plus the transmission distribution, if you can avoid that meter turning, then you'll save those transmission distribution costs. The transmission distribution costs are highest in the rural areas because the customer per kilometer of line there's less customers per line than, say, in the city of Edmonton. So the opportunity for saving transmission distribution costs in Edmonton is not as good than some rural jurisdictions, particularly if I was going to say like an ATCO or that kind of jurisdiction. There's an opportunity to save. So there's an argument in some cases to undersize the system to use the electricity internally, and because there's less benefit to exporting and then drawing it back, because you export at 6.8 cents, but then you draw it back at 6.8 cents plus transmission distribution, which for me is an additional 7 cents. So, selling it to the grid and buying it back and paying the transmission distribution on the way back in is not as good as me just avoiding using electricity altogether. In a commercial application with this peak and demand load, it really amounts to about a cent per kilowatt hour in transmission distribution that's even possible to be saved. So for a commercial entity, it's sort of the lowest. Transmission distribution has the least effect, and rural has a better effect than urban on that. So you do save considerable money, like it's almost double the price for my house in Vermilion, Alberta. I've done the analysis many times, but I do the same analysis for Edmonton, and there's not as much of a return and a saving on transmission distribution. So it is something to consider, and depending on where you live.
Transmission and distribution charges are, I don't like them. I don't think anybody likes them. It's the majority of your bill. When the energy market in Alberta became deregulated, that was one portion that actually is still pretty regulated, and you can have a bit of a say in what you're charged for that. That's regulated by the AUC. So the wire service owners, ATCO, Fortis, EPCOR, when they want to increase your delivery charges, they actually have to apply to AUC and say, hey, we need more money for this to supply this service. And if AUC, okay, yeah, that looks okay, they have no complaints, they can raise your rates. You guys can call the AUC and complain about your transmission and distribution charges, and that's feedback to them. So when those wire service owners want to increase those prices or keep them stable, that goes against them. That's another way you can cut down on them.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest components of dealing with customers is trying to educate them on how that all works. It's often a big confusion. I try to explain to customers, like, now you've got this solar PV system, it's maybe important to run your clothes dryer during the day when the sun's out as opposed to at night, because then they're getting the best value for the system that they invested in. And if they don't understand that, which a lot of them don't, it can really affect your payback quite a bit.
And I do believe that there's another way of being able to help your power bill and save money, again, would be to, there's certain retailers out there where during the summertime when you're making 3 times more power than you need to, you can actually ask for the highest rate possible. And when you ask for the highest rate possible of, like, say 15 cents a kilowatt hour, now you're being paid at 15 cents a kilowatt hour for your energy going back into the grid during the daytime when all the people at home are as a dog and nobody's using power, right? So when you make 3 times more power in the summertime, what a benefit now. Then in the fall, you just call them back up and you say, hey, can I get the lowest rate possible again? And they say, yes, here you go. It's 5 cents a kilowatt hour. Lock it in or not, right? So that's another trick of the trade, I guess. So play in the game.
Yeah, there's 1 or 2 retailers in Alberta that play that game, and they'll allow you to play that game. There is a risk. There's always a risk, and that is if your PV system breaks down, there's a delay period for you changing your rate plan, and so that you can't just change it up the next day. So if you have a PV system that goes down, an inverter goes down or something, it never happens. Never happens. Never have a ground fault or any kind of thing like that. And so, if the system does go down, or maybe you're planning for it and you've got the new install and you're waiting for that bi-directional meter and it's just not showing up on time. I know one guy that got really caught with that. He signed up for the high rate plan, and then the PV system wasn't operational and permitted in time, and he ended up paying consumption at the high rate.
And actually, I've been told a few times here about, when you're talking about getting your system inspected, and if you turn your PV system on, the new meters right now, they are bi-directional, but they only have it set, they don't have it set to begin with, right? When you get your meter now, like at EPCOR, the power goes through it and you get charged for it. And if you put a PV system on, it actually measures the amount of power going out, but you're actually being they're actually accumulating extra kilowatt hours on your meter in both directions. So you don't want to turn your PV system on until you know that the bidirectional meter actually has been initialized by the wire owner.
Is that new meter like a cost of the owner, or is that from the?
The new meter is, I think, in Edmonton, every single unit, I think every meter has already been changed out to be bidirectional and ready for this, and it's not a cost to the homeowner at all. So it's up to the utility because they own it.
I would say the other risk for going to one of those retailers is you really got to understand. I tell people to wait a year, look at their data, and see how much they're actually exporting in the summer before they make that jump. Because if they're actually not producing 3 times as much energy or twice as much, it's not really going to be any benefit. It could cost them more. So.
That's a really good point. And something that I have on my house and we've installed for a few clients is an home energy monitoring system. So you can actually see if you have a solar array or if you don't, you can install one of these systems, and it gives you a real-time view of the electricity use in your home. So if you do have a solar array, it will show you how much you're using versus exporting, and you have a real finger on the pulse of the system or on your home. So that is something else. It can be relatively low cost to install, and you really get to know the energy use, electricity use in your home.
Great, thank you. We're going to take one last question here, and then we're going to wrap up.
Yeah, so I got my system's making excess power right now, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do for billing. So my current provider, right now I basically get credits. Is that how it works? Is I'm getting credits? I don't even know how this is really working. I just have a system that I'm happy that I'm making power. So I get credits based on, what am I getting credits based on, the cost of electricity, or is I'm getting credits based on a kilowatt hour? And then I guess there's other companies out there that are microgeneration specific that you could lock in and they'll pay me for the excess to put back to the grid. Is that right? And I guess if those two systems are what's the best way to go, or what's the pros and cons of either or
yeah,
I don't know. I'm just letting it sit to see what it does for now. But
so did the company that installed your system would have explained kind of how the interaction works, and you can definitely call them up again and they should be able to help you. But what you're talking about is did you receive a rebate for the system, like through the RCSP program?
Yeah, I got a rebate. I got a rebate on there.
So the way that works is when you get a rebate through the program, what you're essentially doing is selling the carbon credits for the carbon offsets from your system to the government of Alberta. So the program you were mentioning, where you get paid, I believe it's 1.85 cents per kilowatt hour. It was through a cooperative called ACE. You're allowed to do that with them, but you can't have received the rebate in order to get that benefit, because what they're doing is buying your carbon credits off of you every month, essentially, and they're giving you that 1.85 cent per kilowatt hour benefit for anything that you export. So if you've received the rebate, then the way that it works is that if you have an excess export on your bill, like you've exported electricity that month, then they're going to credit you at the rate that you pay, the retail rate that you pay. So if you pay 5 cents per kilowatt hour for bringing electricity in that month, then that's what you will receive as a credit on your bill, and that will go against the charges on your bill for that month. And so in some months you will have no credit because you would have consumed it all in your home. But in the summer you probably will have more, you will see more of a credit on your electricity bill than you will in a winter month, for example. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so my credits will carry over. I'm going to produce so much over the summer, hopefully lots. And then hopefully to be net zero, the goal is to have those credits then to carry over for my slow months in the winter and use it up. That's what I'm basically my goal is. 'Cause this year I had nothing.
It's dealt with on a per bill basis, essentially. So the way that you will still have an electricity bill in the winter, but the benefit that you see in the summer, if the system is sized to produce all the electricity that you're consuming in a year, then over the course of the year you will produce what you consume. But the majority of the electricity you produce will be in the summer, and those credits will be applied directly to your bill in the summer. So that's where you'll see the credit. And if there's any carryover, it will carry over to the next month, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's my question. It's going to carry over and keep carrying over, because I should have excess every single month.
As long as you have use every month, essentially, right? Like that they're never going to like write you a check at the end of the year if you have excess.
No, for sure.
But it just carries over from month to month if you have credit. Yeah. Yes, it does. Like I said, it goes against the rest of your bill. So if there is excess, if you've produced enough to cover off the electricity that you've consumed in that month, then that credit actually will go against the transmission and distribution charges that you have as well, not just the energy on that month. Yeah.
And I've seen it where they have all their natural gas and electricity on their bill in the summertime, and it actually pays for their electricity bill and all their natural gas charges and all their service charges, carbon tax, and all the taxes on that in the bill. So it's not just, so it does pay everything if you have it all in one.
We were talking at the break there, you decommissioned a hot tub, which was your biggest source of electricity. So you're now a net positive system, meaning that kind of what we were talking about, you might want to consider when you get more data, looking at a couple of these retailers that are going to give you a higher rate for the exports, because it sounds like you're going to be significantly net positive. And you might even start to approach a net zero cost situation, not just a net zero energy situation.
Well, that was the silver lining. It wasn't. I had no idea that my hot tub was producing or consuming that much power until I shut it off and went, oh,
yeah.
Too bad I didn't have that hot tub when I had solar.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, everyone, for those thoughtful questions.